Tuesday night in Boston, in a game between the Bruins and the Toronto Maple Leafs, Bruins forward Taylor Hall was called for roughing Leafs defender Ilya Lyubushkin from behind. There's so much going on here, but we'll start with the basics. Hall takes a pass up the boards facing backward toward his own goal. As he pivots away from Lyubushkin and tries to turn around, Lyubushkin checks him and Hall goes into the boards head first. Hall gets up, drops his stick, and immediately engages, reaching around and punching in the chin. The first question I'll answer is, was Taylor Hall hit from behind? And my answer is no. Lyubushkin essentially is pivoting to take Hall backwards 1v1 and tries more to get his leg and body out in front of Hall to cut out a space, more so than drive through his back. While I do wonder how this would have played out had Hall kept skating backwards instead of turning, the fact is impact is mostly from the side, and it's because Lyubushkin does a nice job trying to use body position instead of driving through with force. And was it boarding? I just don't see enough force directed toward the boards to warrant calling it. Everything Lyubushkin does seems focused on preventing Hall from going forward rather than unreasonably driving him specifically toward the boards. Now moving to Hall. Was this a sucker punch? I'd love to be able to speak with him in a hearing to get his explanation, but based on video, I'm not so sure. His hand doesn't swing around in the right motion you'd expect for a full-on punch targeting the face or head. And his thumb is extended with open hand, more like he's trying to grab a hold of the shoulder pad to spin him around. I'm not saying this isn't a stupid thing to do. If you drop your stick and grab a guy from behind mid-play and even near the head, either way you're probably not just asking him in for a cup of tea. I am saying I'd like to be able to ask him the question of intent to really nail down the length of suspension. And now maybe lost in all this is Charlie Coyle coming out of the Boston Bruins penalty box. As the door opens, he puts his stick directly into the legs of Lyubushkin and jackknifes him a little bit. Don't think we didn't see that. It's interference in an altercation by a player technically still in the penalty box. Did he mean to? It's hard to say. But he could have and should have done more to avoid it. It's a tripping penalty at the very least, and possibly worse. So where do we stand after all that? For Lyubushkin contact, I'm seeing a boarding minor penalty at the very worst, so no supplemental discipline required. For Taylor Hall, without the benefit of a hearing based on what I saw in the video evidence, I'm not quite at sucker punch, but I'd still call it a play that has nothing to do with hockey, putting it in the 6 to 10 game suspension category. As for Charlie Coyle, I'd call dangerously interfering with an opponent right out of the penalty box a problem to be prevented somehow, so while this particular play wasn't blatantly intentional, he could have tried harder to avoid it, and I want to make sure all players try harder in the future. In summary, tough call would fine Charlie Coyle of the Boston Bruins $5,000 for unsportsmanlike conduct. Tough call would suspend Taylor Hall of the Boston Bruins 6 games for roughing pending a hearing.